And welcome back to another special edition of the Michael Deacon program, all the way from the wastelands of California. My name, in fact, is Michael. Nice to meet you. First time listeners out there, thanks for finding us. It's better than a fatal accident, that's for sure. Do keep in mind, no matter what it is you choose to believe, we do admire you for your curiosity. Joining us this evening is the return of Dr. Paul Cottrell. You have heard him here various times, and of course you have heard him on his own YouTube channel, which is very popular. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again, on a night like this. The wait is over, and you too will get the opportunity to call in and ask questions, or maybe just state your opinions on COVID-19. Has your opinion on this virus at all changed? I have no idea. I really don't know. And of course, I can't hear. I think I could even hear my neighbors outside. I know you guys can't, but they're going off out there. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but regardless, here we are again, like a very big, happy, dysfunctional family. And of course, I know the doctor is waiting, so without further ado, let's get right into it with Dr. Paul Cottrell, who I believe is patiently waiting. Let's bring him in right now. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good. I can't complain. I'm so glad you're here. There's lots to discuss, lots to decipher yet again. And of course, you are open to phone calls tonight, right?
Yeah, yeah. It'd be
Fantastic.
great to take some calls and answer some questions.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good thing to do. And of course, that number is 424 666 2425. That's the new number, by the way, Paul.
Ready.
I know it's a
Four
little
two four 666
it's a
2425.
it's a little dark, I know, but the thing is it's quite catchy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're always going to remember that one, that's for sure.
that's right. That's right.
Definitely. So, Paul, how are you, by the way? Is everything going good out there in NYC?
Well, in my building, we have a case that's confirmed. So they are sheltered in place for 14 days. So I live in a building that's about 10 stories high. So, but because of their own for their own safety, they don't divulge which unit that individual is. So we don't know which floor it is or whatever. I don't think it's on my, but we do have one confirmed case in my building.
And does that have you at all worried?
Well, people are walking around on eggshells, and the staff here, they look at you if you're not wearing a mask, with that evil eye, and everyone is, kind of really concerned. I mean, you can feel it in the air that when it's so close, it's there's the psychological effect of like knowing that someone around you has it versus someone on TV that has it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
So so when it's close, you get a little worried and a little concerned. But as I was telling you early on, way, on our first show
Right.
together, um, there if you boost your immune system, that you have a higher probability of fighting it. If you're around people that have it, or you can't just get one viral product to get sick. You have to have lots of viral products, and you have to, have somewhat of a suppressed immune system. So if you take vitamins, you take care of your body, you exercise, you have the right state of mind, then your chances of fighting any pathogen becomes exponentially better. So, as I talked on your show that there's protease inhibitors that you can take and antivirals that are all natural that have been, proven to fight pathogens. And there was a paper that came out a while back that I covered where I was saying that if you prophylactically take Relora, forskolin, licorice root, calendula, and you take that in a sequence each day, that they've proven in vitro, proven for blocking 3CL proteases. So they're protease inhibitors. And 3CL is the conserved section of all coronaviruses. So, there is a plethora of things that people can do to take care of their body as they get in an environment like we are in right now, where there are
Right.
many people that are getting sick. Maybe, they're mild cases, but could spread it. And it just makes sense to just take care of your body and take these types of supplements
That's right.
to just boost up your immune system. And there's lots. You can keep inflammation down, boost up the vitamin D3s, the vitamin C's, the chaga mushrooms, and all, there's tons. Even increasing supplementation with rosemary, so, and thieves oil, and there's tons and tons of stuff out there that people can do to kind of protect their body. But if you do get sick, which people do, then you have to see a doctor and you need to get treated, because you don't want to have that severe infection take hold in your lungs and damage those alveolar cells permanently.
Right. So let me get something straight here with you, Doc.
Mhm.
So someone currently in your building is positive for COVID, correct?
That's correct.
And you don't know if they are. You don't know.
Well,
you don't
they're
exactly
not,
know
they're
what
not
room
that
they're
bad
on,
where
right?
they have to be hospitalized. That's all we know.
So you know nothing then.
Right.
Okay.
We don't know if it's a male or female. We know it's one case. We don't know if the person is living alone or with a family, family member. We don't know which unit or which floor it's on. But we were told the day that they were announced, when they were confirmed testing positive. So I suspect that it's a mild case. It could be asymptomatic. Maybe they were going to work and they had to be tested to go back to work, and they just happened to test positive. But that the protocol at the moment right now is, if you test positive, you have to be staying quarantined until you're not testing positive anymore, and then you have to go beyond I think it's 14 days. So so we have at least one person in our
Are you
building.
not at all?
But we don't know the details.
Right. And Paul, are you not at all paranoid at all?
For me, I'm not, because I understand the dynamics of this and how to fight it. I've been saying this from day one. It's about preparation. If you prepare and boost up your immune system the best you can, not everybody can. Some people have ailments and genetic disorders.
Not everyone can afford it either, by the way.
Lifestyle issues.
Yeah, it's expensive, by the way, too, Paul.
Well,
could get pricey.
I spend a few to several hundreds of dollars in anti-aging stuff. But
you go pretty hard with that stuff there. And we already have a phone call here for you, Paul. Or at least I think it's a phone call for you. Could be for anybody, really. It could be for me. It could be the wrong number, but let's.
No, but the point, okay, we can take that.
Yeah, let's take their call really quickly here. Maybe they have something rather important to tell us here. You never know. Caller, what's going on? Caller, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Right on. Yeah, I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I've talked to Paul briefly before, but he's had some of the most informative content.
I agree.
But yeah, I've been right out in the after the riots and stuff. Half the businesses are still burnt down and everything.
Right.
I've been in and out of so my girlfriend has been in the hospital for the past year, not with COVID related stuff, but she's had endocarditis of her heart. So she just had a heart surgery, so I've been in and out visiting her, and I seem to be relatively fine. I mean, there isn't an outright.
And you're in Minnesota, by the way.
Public cases.
And caller, you are in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have to tell us where exactly, but okay. Understood.
Actually, I think I remember you calling on my show. If I remember your voice.
I think it was a Zoom. My name's Ian.
Ian?
Yep.
Were you the one that was talking about the hydroxychloroquine? Or no?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. Because I had a few people that called and talked about the hydroxychloroquine, but those videos were taken down by YouTube. Because Michael, as you know, hydroxychloroquine, is kind of like a bad word on YouTube because of Fauci taking it off of the regimen.
Is it really?
Potential. Yeah. So anyone that had
interesting
videos that were promoting, at least prophylactically, hydroxychloroquine, some of those videos were taken down, and I had about 3 of them that were taken down. And I talked to people that took it while they were sick. So I had case studies, early on, as you know, on my channel, I would have people calling in saying, well, what are you seeing on the ground? Or what's your perspective? And some people shared information on this is what they were being treated early on.
Right, and that's what we will be talking about here with you in a moment. But caller, what else is going on out there in your area? Are you seeing a meteoric rise in cases, like I am out here in California?
I can't say like I don't see more ambulances or more. When I go to the hospital, they make me put on a mask, and luckily she was in there for maybe about 2 months. The girl I've been seeing, and she had like a successful heart surgery and everything. I was worried that she might catch it, but like she transferred out.
Oh, did we?
No, I think he went into maybe I can slightly hear him in the background.
You can slightly hear him in the background. I have no idea what happened.
I don't know if he
did we lose you there?
Hello?
Huh?
We lost your connection just a few seconds.
Yeah, we lost you there for a moment.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
Did we lose you? Yeah, I think we lost.
I can hear you guys. Maybe I'm muted.
Maybe
I muted it. I don't know.
Yeah, we hear him. We hear him just fine. I don't know what happened to him.
You there?
Yeah, I think we might have. I think we might have lost him. But yes, please call back 424-666-2425. I'm not sure what happened there, but
the thing is, Michael, I had so many people calling in that was first 3 months. I mean, literally, my phone. I'm not bragging. I mean, because I try to I try to be as humble as possible.
We're getting a lot of calls right now, by the way.
But I was getting phone calls nonstop on my phone that I literally had to turn off my phone.
Wow.
Because there was no way that I could get any rest because I was getting calls from Europe too.
Well, 3 people called in at the same time. That's what happened. I'm not. Here we are. Caller, what's up? You're back.
Hey.
Or is this the new caller? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I could barely hear this guy now. We could barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Okay, now we could hear you.
You can hear us?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Excellent. Awesome. I just want to say thanks the Michael Deacon program for having us on. This is Eddie Adams Skywalker, YouTube chosen one. I'm sitting here with George Webb, and we just want to say hi to Paul Cottrell. Dr. Cottrell, how's it going?
I'm doing fine. Yeah, it's important, Michael. Addie Ads and George Webb have been instrumental in trying to inform the public about what's been going on, and we kind of collaborate weekly, in trying to publish stuff. So they're part of an organization called Neighborhood News Hour, which was deplatformed on YouTube. And as you know, Michael, there's tons of people that are getting deplatformed. Like Stefan Molyneux.
Right.
I've been shadow banned and demonetized. There's just the whole story. So and Addie has been shadowed, and George Webb has been deplatformed multiple times, and they've been doing great work. So anyone that's listening, please try to support Addie. It's Addie Ads, and he's on brand new tube. So please try to help these patriots, everyone that's involved. And that's the thing is that everybody needs to work together to save this country. And I'm just proud to say that Addie and George and Michael and many others are my friends and have been with me from day one on this.
That's right.
Well, Paul, I just want to say this is George. I love your stuff. You go all the way from politics all the way through down to the protease inhibitors, dude. And I love that about you. You really you could tell you're studying every day constantly. And then I don't know how you find time to do this stuff, but thanks for all you're doing, Paul. Really, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for your service too, George.
Hey, Paul, another member of Neighborhood News Studio here. Just want to say thanks, and thanks for coining the term Bio Patriot Act. Not that it's anything all that exciting, but you definitely
keyed into it, and you've been talking about it forever. And definitely, they are totally doing a Bio-Patriot Act to us right now.
That's
So
right.
thanks
And
for,
we need
calling
to
that
all
shot.
band together and fight it. And these pillars of the Bio-Patriot Act that we have to fight is the decaching and the digital wallet and, the militarization of the police, the forced vaccine program, the Agenda 21. These are things that even Michael on his show has been talking about, many, many times. And, the bottom line is that we are being attacked from many different fronts, from the biological front, from our economic front, from our civil liberty front, from our we're even being attacked from China in the Pacific, with our hegemonic power. They're checking our hegemonic power. So there's some huge things going on, and unfortunately, we have a Congress that has been compromised and taken over and captured by deep staters, and we need to fight back. And it's only through people working together and saying no to these technocrats will we be able to save our Constitution. And it's going to be citizen journalists like Neighborhood News Hour and many, many others, and platforms like Michael Deacon's program and my show, and different groups on Facebook, like the foundation that we have, which is the Freedom Restoration Foundation. You can join our group there, but there are many, many others that that are trying to spread the word and get organized to fight this tyranny. We do not want to lose our civil liberties and our way of life. And what's happening is we're on the knife edge of what Ayn Rand warned us about in the Atlas Shrugged. And that is that we're going to move into socialism and communism. And that is what's at stake. It's not just a virus. It's not just battling the CCP for the island chains, but there is this larger global play that we're going to lose our way of life. We're going to lose that Constitution that we hold dear. So we all have to work together and don't let them do this to us. You can see it on CNN and MSNBC, and even with some of the Fox anchors, where they're pushing this kind of this socialistic agenda.
Were you saying something? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thanks to both Michael Deacon and Dr. Cottrell. We want to let other people get on the line too and do call-ins. But this Neighborhood News Studio is the new channel. We just got axed. Neighborhood News Hour was the old one, so now it's Neighborhood News Studio. We're not monetizing, but if you want to check us out there, otherwise on my channel too, you can see George and the gang every single day. So,
Michael. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Paul. Hey, Paul, I just wanted to ask, you doing good in class? You need any help on those exams? Everybody should know that Paul is not, a career YouTuber here. He's a student, a high-profile student studying hard every day. So
Right.
I'll bet you're getting a 4.0, man, right?
Medical school is extremely hard, and just passing is an amazing accomplishment. So
we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thanks for the show, guys.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. And there they go.
But the big point here is that there's been so many YouTubers, that have been trying to sound the alarm with me, and they've been axed. They've been killed off. They've been demonetized. They've been shadow banned. Some of them had 900,000 subscribers. Some of them only had 4,000 subscribers. Some, were in, the 40,000 subscriber zone. But the bottom line is that across the spectrum, people have been chopped down to try to prevent the message to being heard. And channels like yours are so important as the underground movement to get the word out, to start saving our Constitution. And that is, preventing the Bio-Patriot Act, because it's a big chunk of the Agenda 21.
Caller, go ahead. You are live on the air.
Yes, am I live?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, this is a question for Dr. Paul Cottrell.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could comment on spread of COVID-19 into the mink population in Europe and also recently in the United States. There's about 21 mink farms in the U.S.
That's a great question, by the way.
Yeah. My concern is it's already in the mink population, and there's documented evidence that it went from minks into humans and vice versa. And a mink, well, anything with hair on it is mammal. Does that put our food at risk? Basically, cattle, anything else with hair. And from what I understand too, is it's jumped into the avian population. There has been some documentation of that happening, which is unbelievable for a virus to be doing that. It's extremely rare. I'm a medical technologist, and I've worked extensively in different laboratories, and I've never seen it like this.
So,
And
in terms of the medical technology, more of like a ultrasound tech, or what kind of technology?
Laboratory,
Okay.
microbiology, hematology, chemistry,
Okay.
on and on, neurology. But I'm
But
not
not like in a clinical setting. It's more.
I'm
laboratory setting,
retired
more
now.
like pathology or something.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. My hearing's
It's not in a
that
clinical
great. I'm
setting. It's
old.
more in a laboratory setting.
Excuse me?
The technology that you're talking about.
Is it what?
No, I was just mentioning that in terms of the technology, you're a technologist, right? A lab tech. So I was just wondering if it was more on the clinical side or if in the laboratory side. But you're stating that it's more laboratory oriented.
I'm not sure of what you're saying. My hearing isn't all that great. I was going to take the answer off air.
Oh, my.
But
Okay.
But
No,
yeah, I mean,
so
I'm a ASCP, American Society of Clinical Pathologists registered.
understood. So to
That's
answer your
the
question,
hardest test you can take nationwide. The state tests are pretty easy compared to this test. This is a 2-day test. They test you in, and if you happen to pass it, ASCP, FDA as a certification.
well, that's great. So to answer your question, I'd like to take a look at the numbers. So like for the UK as a proxy for what's going on lately.
I'm sorry you're breaking up. I really can't hear you. Would it be okay if I take that question off the air so I can hear it?
Yeah.
You got it, brother. Take care. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
calling. So to answer that gentleman's question, I'm going to take the UK as the proxy. Okay.
Go for it.
So the UK, just to give it in an understanding of where we're at the 50,000 foot level, they're just under 1 million cases just in the UK. So Europe, is definitely in a bad situation, just like in the United States. And we have been hearing that France is going into lockdown, Spain is bad, UK is going to be going into lockdown on Monday for 4 weeks. It's serious in Europe.
It's going to happen here. If you just have to look. Yeah, you just
That's
have to
right.
look across the pond there and you see it happening, and the chances are it's going to come here. And I've been
That's
saying that for months. Get ready for another wave. It's on the horizon.
Right. So, so to focus on his question about, I'm speaking a little bit, loudly, so maybe he can hear it while he's listening. But specific to Europe, they have an outbreak, and it's serious, and it's overrunning their medical system. That's been documented, especially in France. So with the UK, they have just under 1 million cases with just under 50,000 deaths, right? But the UK is kind of like the size of a state. They're a little bigger than a state. Well, it's about the size of the state, depending on which state you're looking at. But the dynamics, they are in a two-wave system, right? That country. So it's similar to the two-wave system that we're seeing in certain states in the United States. And that first wave peaked in around April. And the second wave hasn't peaked yet. And that second wave looks like it really started climbing at around September. Around near the end of September. All right. They're averaging daily around 25,000 new cases a day. All right. It's hard to get the information on hospitalizations, but I have had many people that listen to my channel, and they have been sending either emails or text messages, the ones that have my phone number, or even messaging me on Facebook. What they do is they're saying what they're seeing on the ground. And I have people in the UK telling me that it's bad in the hospitals.
Okay? I bet, yeah.
I can't confirm that with data from Johns Hopkins because they don't give us that granularity. But I'm going to take what they're saying, their personal anecdotal evidence, as truth. And with that, their system is starting to get overloaded. It's very similar to what was being published in other countries in Europe. Okay. Now, with 25,000 new cases, you're going to have several that need hospitalization, and there's going to be a certain percentage that are going to need to go into ICU. All right. But they have been learning how to treat this. And if you treat it early, you don't get intubated and go down the path of death. All right. Usually. Right. Or early on, it wasn't the case. Now, what's different about these waves are the waves are larger. The peaks are larger in the second wave than in the first wave. If you look at the different states, comparing states, for example, in the United States, we have California has the most confirmed cases, right? Back
Outrageous.
in the day, it was New York.
Yes.
California's peak was in June, right? But there looks to be the beginnings of a second wave in California.
That's right.
Now, in Texas, they peaked out around mid-July. But again, there's a starting of a peak that's taking place. Now, in New York, everyone knows, we peaked out in around April, right? And we're starting to see the beginnings of a second wave. I think, to answer the guy's question, I think Europe is a little ahead of the game in terms of severity for the second wave than the United States. And then what's happening in Europe is most likely going to happen to the United States.
Right. And hold that thought 1 second, Paul. We are joined by another caller. Go ahead, caller. You are live on the air.
Hi, this is Ian again.
Ian, you're back.
Hey, Ian.
Back.
Very nice. I'm glad. Yeah. Yes, I'm glad you're back. And to answer Matt's question in the chat room, I believe that's Matt Friend, I believe. He's saying, this ain't going away, is it? And the short answer is, no, it's not.
No, and I'll scare you, all right? Because it's Friday. It's Friday. It's October 30th.
Let it spill.
This
Go ahead.
thing, I'll tell you, this virus is never going to go away. Just get it in your head. It is never going to go away. The question is, how are we going to deal with it? All right. This virus has been released and it will never go away. Right. But that does not mean that it is going to be this virulent or this catastrophic. All right. Over time, that the virus is never going to go away. And there is some evidence that says that once you get it, you probably will never get rid of it in your body. The question is, does it get reactivated, or does it just kind of live with you like a lot of viruses? So, but the point is that the idea that the virus is going to go away, that's hogwash. Now, what is the method to try to get back to normalcy? All right. Is it a vaccine program? Is it herd immunity? Is it, letting the virus eventually attenuate to a point where we're living with the virus? My stance is this. The vaccine program has a lot of questions in terms of manufacturing and tort law issues, right? And because of that, I have to assume that a brand new vaccine, especially for something that was a bioweapon, most likely is not a safe thing, right? I'm going to err on the side of caution when it comes to vaccines. What I'm not going to err the side of caution on is that supplementation and boosting up your immune system is probably the right way to go.
Right.
And get these pharmaceutical companies to get these therapeutics, not vaccines, but therapeutics like remdesivir and others that either are protease inhibitors or replicase inhibitors or inhibit some process, and in a cocktail, slow down the viral load in the population. And when you slow down the viral load in the population, you'll buy time for the doctors and nurses, be able to treat patients, and you can slowly titrate the population into herd immunity and not force a vaccine program. So I disagree with Fauci and the idea, keep everyone away and don't get sick, stay in your little bubble, don't get sick, and then let Moderna come out with a vaccine and then have everyone get vaccinated. That's his method. The method I'm saying is this. Start living your life and stop living in fear, all right? Because we've tried the shelter-in-place method for way too long. New York, in the United States, it has had the most draconian measures and obedience to those draconian measures than anywhere else in the country. And we are in the start of a second wave. Shelter in place, I am stating on Michael Deakin's show, does not work.
That's
right. It does not work. It helps to slow the virus. It bought time for the nurses and the doctors and the hospitals to get prepared for the wave, the big wave, which you're seeing in Europe right now. We bought time. We also bought time with the pharmaceutical companies to be able to do the clinical tests to prove out remdesivir, prove out the monoclonal antibodies work, to prove out that convalescent antibody plasma treatment works, that hydroxychloroquine works, that there's a plethora of things that can be provided from a therapeutical track to treat this instead of a vaccine. Now, if a vaccine is available and you want it, it is your prerogative. But if you don't want it, you shouldn't be forced because it's about patient autonomy. But shelter in place will weaken you. And everyone that's listening to this show right now, please spread the word after the show. Because what I'm going to say right now, I want you to write down, is one of the most important things that I'm going to say tonight. By staying at home and not getting a little bit infected and getting some of your antibodies started in the population at large and building up a herd immunity is going to force a vaccine program, a mandatory vaccine program. By staying at home, you can't get sick. But when you get out, you already have an immune system that's weakened because they're not telling you to take D3 and vitamin C, and you go out and you're getting out of shelter in place and you're going back to work, and even with the mask, and what happens? People are starting to get sick because they have a weakened immune system. They stayed at home and they weakened their immune system. On top of it, when you're all of a sudden going outside and you've been indoors for months, you're being exposed to pathogens that you normally just a little bit a day get. and your immune system takes over and fights it.
You're talking about the viral load, correct?
Right. I'm talking about the viral load,
yes,
but
sir.
also other pathogens that bring down your immune system that will allow for this pathogen, SARS-CoV-2, to come in and take hold. Because if your immune system is down, and let's say you're exposed to something that is somewhat benign, like say a normal coronavirus, or a little bit of the flu, or even just allergies, you're going to start secreting mucus and histamines and all this other stuff that will create an environment that is going to be conducive for this pathogen to take hold. If you have a strong immune system, it won't take hold.
Oy vey.
So if you're, for example, people that have been eating honey in their local area, because the bees are taking pollen from their local plants and making the honey, and you're eating the honey, you're eating some of the antigens and training your immune system for the environment you're in. That's why people eat local honey.
Yeah, raw honey is really good for you, by the way, and it's good on your face, by the way, too. For those that don't know.
So, well, I didn't know that, but the thing is that the point is that you have to be in the environment. The kids need to be in the dirt so they don't get sick.
By the way,
a lot of these mothers,
go ahead, Paul.
Prevent these kids from playing in the dirt, and all of a sudden they start having asthma issues and allergy issues and issues up the yin yang because they don't play in the dirt.
By the way, Paul, I was just going to quickly mention that I think we lost our caller there. There was some yelling going on, and he dropped out on us there. Ian.
Was it me yelling? Why he dropped out?
There was some yelling going on, not by you, by someone in the background of the call there. I hope he's okay. I don't know what was going on.
But the bottom line.
Yes, go ahead.
The bottom line is this. Fauci and the establishment want you to stay at home and you get sicker, so you take the vaccine. Write this down. If you get sick with COVID-19, they will not give you a vaccine. They do not give people vaccines that were sick. Now think about that for a second. If you're pushing $1 billion or multi-billion-dollar jab into the American public,
right?
Don't you think that you need to protect that asset and make sure that they're pure enough so you can jab them, so you can make your money? They don't want herd immunity. They don't want people to walking around and eventually getting a little bit of virus. See, what's happening is that the research that's coming out is saying, you know what? Some people, a lot of these cases are somewhat muted or benign or asymptomatic because there's cross-reactivity from other coronaviruses. That we built up antibodies from other colds, and we still have some of those antibodies in. And for certain people, they have a little bit stronger immunity because of cross-reactivity against SARS-CoV-2. All right? That's not true for everybody, but there is some research out there that states this, that the cross-reactivity is important, and that's part of the herd immunity. There is also the antibodies that are created through the population by being exposed to SARS-CoV-2. But you got to weigh the risks and the benefits. The benefit of having the population going through and living their life and pushing through and working together and moving forward the society and not be fearful and go back to work and take the damn mask off and just live your life. What will happen is that it will push that virus through the population quicker. The longer it is staying slow into the population, the more chance of a gain of function naturally. And that gain of function goes back to the pinballing issue that I was mentioning between receptors, where it'll lose affinity with ACE2 and gain affinity with, let's say, CD209. You want it to get through the population quick Get people with antibodies, and eventually you'll have herd immunity. Now, we thought, and I mentioned this on your show, we thought that the magic number was anywhere from 19 to 23% of the population. All right? But that was assuming certain social dynamics. And that did not take into account possible synergistic effects with other pathogens.
Right. And Paul, I did want to talk about this topic with you here tonight, but before we jump further into this, because I had a lot to ask you in regards of the mask and how we should be protecting ourselves or not protecting ourselves and herd immunity. But before we do, there was this article I came across from NPR just recently today, and I wanted your opinion on it. I was going to send you the article, but time is not on our side. But here is a clip of that. Play that for you right now, Paul.
Number of new coronavirus cases, 40 to 45,000 cases per day. We remember that for perspective, 40 to 45,000 per day, because as cases soar this fall, the U.S. yesterday reported 88,000 cases in a single day. Hospitals are filling up, and it would help public health officials to know which hospitals are at risk of being overwhelmed. A few federal officials know, but other officials don't. NPR has obtained an internal document from the federal government that shows the U.S. is gathering and analyzing daily hospital data, but not sharing it with the public. NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin is with us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
What is this document?
So the document we got is a 49-page slide deck. It's dated October 27th, and it has a lot of charts and maps, not a lot of raw data, but it offers a glimpse into the kind of information the federal government is gathering and analyzing. There are graphs that show hospital trends, capacity in intensive care units, ventilator use, and more. And it appears to be circulated every day to a fairly limited group of about 40, mostly at the staff at the Department of Health and Human Services. Only one member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force receives it directly, and that is Admiral Brett Giroir. And public health experts we talked with say that this data could be really helpful in the fight against this virus, but they can't get access to it.
What do you learn from looking at the document?
Well, one key slide that stands out shows how hospitalizations are changing in metro areas. So you can see that this week, hospitals in metro Atlanta, Minneapolis, and Baltimore were more than 80% full.
Wow.
Another shows that specific hospitals in Tampa, Birmingham, and New York had ICUs that were over 95% full this week. My reporting partner, Ping Wang, and I reviewed the documents with several data experts and epidemiologists, and many of them said there's more that could be done with the underlying data that HHS is collecting but not sharing.
For example, what?
Well, one thing you could do is graph how fast hospitalizations are increasing. So if you run a hospital and it's been 75% full for weeks and you're managing your staff and it's all working, but then you're 77% full, that might not be concerning. But if you've been 50% full and then one day you're 77% full, that could be really concerning. And it could mean you need more resources. Your community needs to change its public health mandates. So it's the same number, but it means something really different. And I talked about this with Melissa McFeeters, an epidemiologist and professor at Vanderbilt.
With this particular disease, like a race car, once it starts accelerating, it's really hard to slow it down. You may be able to stop on a dime up to, 70 miles an hour, but you can't stop on a dime at 100 miles an hour.
So that's why you need to watch the acceleration. With detailed data from around the country, researchers could watch that and they could see where the epidemic is going next. They don't have access to that data at the national level right now, even though it is being gathered by HHS.
Having seen this document, though, does it really contain information that local or state officials could get no other way?
Well, it is true that state and local health departments have, in a lot of places, come up with their own ways to gather and present this information, but it is uneven. And the other thing is that national data would show one thing that state dashboards can't, and that's a regional picture. For example, McFeeters says her team gets great data from the state health department, but Tennessee has 8 bordering states.
Hospitals in Tennessee serve patients who are from Arkansas and Mississippi and Kentucky and Georgia and vice versa. And so when we see hospitals that are particularly near those state borders having increases, one of the things we can't tell is that because hospitals in an adjacent state are full? What's going on there?
Well, how has HHS responded then that it's damaging to have this data not be public?
An agency spokesperson told NPR that, quote, our goal is to be as transparent as possible while still protecting privacy. But public health experts we spoke with said it doesn't seem like there's a reason why HHS couldn't release more of this data if it wanted to.
Well, now at least one version of this data is public, thanks to NPR. Selena Simmons-Duffin, thanks so much.
My goodness.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there, Michael.
I know.
The thing is that
there's
I've been
a lot.
stating, on your show and many others, but it's about the granularity. Johns Hopkins database does not provide the information needed to drill down. And one of the major drill down points is the hospitalizations.
Right.
And and this reporter was right. It's about the slope. What is the rate of growth or decline of a particular metric? It's not just new cases. What's important is new cases that have been tested for that day. All right. So that ratio, how many tested positive for relative to the number of people that tested for that day? If that number goes up more than 3 or 4%, you have an outbreak in your area. All right. Let that sit in for a second. Most people just keep on hearing positive cases for that day. But you don't know how many were tested then. It's hard to get.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So it's about the ratio. So if 10 people tested positive, but only 10 were tested, you got a problem.
Right.
If you had 10 people that tested positive, but you tested 1,000, you don't really have a problem. All right. So it's about ratios. And when you look at it longitudinally, all right, you get a better understanding of that changing dynamic day after day after day, and then you'll get a rate of growth from it or a rate of decline. So Johns Hopkins data is not granular enough. And I've been stating that the two metrics that you need to look out for is the new hospitalizations that are COVID-19 related and that ratio between number of people being tested relative to the number of people that are being tested positive for that day. That's important. When you know that, then you understand what's going on. Now, what Governor Cuomo's doing is that he's giving those ratios, right? And the micro clusters at the state, let's say the testing positive ratio is about 1%, a little bit below 1% some days, a little bit above 1% at the state level, all right? But when you're looking at the micro clusters, you're at the 3 to 5 level, and that is worrisome. And especially in a dense area like New York. And this is exactly what happened right at the very beginning. All right. And it's happening right now in Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah, it's happening in real time. And Paul, it's just really, it's a concern every time I always see that there's more suppression from our government. I mean, shouldn't this information be shared publicly?
Absolutely. It should be shared publicly. And I think that part of the reason why it's not being shared is that it's a black eye for the current administration. And that's one reason. The other reason is that that's because of certain areas like New York is starting to get bad. All right. Now, if you keep everybody in the dark, and then all of a sudden you have this headline news on CNN, let's say, and says, well, you have an overrun of hospitals right now. And they didn't give you that little inch up, in the curve, in that daily count to see it. They just all of a sudden hit you with it really quick with that large, 100% capacity, for hospitalization beds or whatever, all over the country. Then what it does is it puts people in a feared mode, and it will force them to capitulate for this vaccine program.
And people are already stockpiling goods.
Yeah,
and people are preparing.
Here's the thing: is that we're starting to notice in New York that food and certain paper products, toilet paper, paper towel, stuff like that is starting to become not as plentiful in the stores. And it's starting to be reminiscent of what it was like at the very beginning of the first wave.
Oh, it's happening.
People were, people are stockpiling again.
That's right.
Again, so food crops, the food stuffs are not as plentiful in the stores too. So we're seeing that. There's similar dynamics that are going on. All right. My take on this is that they're not sharing the information. We need the information to understand what's really going on.
Right.
And if you keep us in the dark, it's easier to try to control the society. All right. And again, what's important is most people that get sick, if they're treated, will be fine.
Treated early.
Treated early. That's the point. It's getting treated early. You'll be okay, But the thing is that you got to treat it like the president was treated. It's a cocktail. It's not. I've heard people getting albuterol, all right, and just to be bronchial dilators, and that's all they get. You believe that?
Well, not everyone's the president either, so
Yeah,
it's
but
going to be
the
hard.
thing is, the president did say that Regeneron was going to be free. For everybody. So I mean, he made statements that medical care to treat SARS-CoV-2 is going to be free and it's going to be paid for by the federal government. All right. I would rather have the federal government spend the billions and billions and billions of dollars to make sure that we have the therapeutics for everybody in this country than to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars to prop up the banking system. It's not even billions. It's in the hundreds of billions. So I would prefer. I would much prefer for this particular healthcare crisis to have the federal government come in and say, hey, we're going to use federal dollars and to make sure that people are treated with this disease because of
you see that, huh?
Yeah, I did see
okay.
it. Because of the the severity of the situation.
Understood.
Right?
Understood.
But they aren't sharing the data. That's the main point of the video or the audio.
That has me perturbed completely, by the way. For those that are paying attention, I mean, if the hospital is suppressing information, well, the government is rather, and they're not sharing that to the public, that should bother all of you out there listening to this.
It's Rudy Giuliani.
That was Rudy Giuliani there. He was dressed as a woman, and Donald Trump was motorboating him.
So, but the
right.
The data needs to be more available, more transparent.
It does.
And I think HHS and I think the NIH is not being transparent. They weren't transparent at the very beginning.
The CDC hasn't been transparent either.
They knew there are 23 states when we had only 30 cases. Most of them were in California. They knew the 23 states had infection, and I had people calling into my show telling me that they had cases. But it wasn't published on Johns Hopkins. And as you know, I called the governor and asked, what was going on in Buffalo, and didn't get an answer. But we need transparency for sure.
I agree.
But the thing is that people need to not be. I want people to understand that think about this for a second. You're in the home for months. New York has been sheltered in place since February. It is now the end of October, and we're still in a certain degree of shelter in place. It did not work. What we need is a different method.
Different plan.
A different plan. And we have more understanding of the virus, and we have more therapeutics on the shelf to use. So instead of taking stuff off the shelf, we need to keep everything on the table to make sure that the doctors and nurses can use it, because we are in a crisis situation. And I think the president has authority for national security reasons to be able to issue that and not have to, dance around with the FDA and, is it the efficacy of it and all this BS.
That's right.
But people need to get out and start moving around, because by being in shelter in place, weakened us. So let's use their logic. Stay in shelter in place. Oh, you know what? We're gonna slowly open up the society. Now we've had 50% of the businesses closed and 50% of the population is out of a job. Now we're gonna slowly open up the society. Oh, we have reinfection again. So we got to go back in shelter in place. When is this going to ever end? Is it worth destroying $20 trillion economy? Is it worth destroying our Constitution to have this socialistic tyranny, this technocratic scientific community that Fauci is running to tell us on how to live our life? I keep on stating, we need to we need to move forward and live dangerously instead of living, comfortably numb, with the nanny state. I mean, you listen to Cuomo, and every conference call that he has, he bashes Trump. He talks about the microclusters and how it's important for people to be quarantined and to be curtailed with their movement. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about socializing certain industries like the utility company. This guy is a main character right out of Ayn Rand, right out of Atlas Shrugged. He's pushing an agenda, and that agenda is socialism. It's not even just regular socialism. It's like right on the edge of communism.
And I'm glad you got us warmed up with this topic. But before we go further down the rabbit hole here, Ian Stern says, is the newer strain more infectious or more deadly or both than the original one that attached to the ACE2 primarily? Aren't there many different strains now? And yes, I forgot, I lost count on how many mutations and strains have already occurred, by the way.
There's to kind of get into the details of this.
Yeah,
there are many different sequences that are available in the database, the NIH database. I mean, the last I stopped looking because there were so many of them, but the last I looked, there were 50.
Right.
All right. Most of them are benign mutations. They're one nucleotide mutation kind of. So they're very benign. But the major switch was what I was mentioning on your show, the D614G mutation. Now, with that, what it did was it allowed for the virus to stay in the body longer and to be able to build viral product and then issue, out of the cell, to exocytose out of the cell. Okay? The old version, before the mutation, what happened was the S1 subunit started to shed because it had a negative, I'm going from memory here, a negative charge. And what was happening, it was repelling between the S2 subunit and the S1 subunit. This is for the spike protein inside the cytoplasm. So with the two negatives, they repel. And then what happens is that the S1 sheds. And if you only have S2, you can't assemble the spike protein, and the viral load is less in the cell.
You have a pretty good memory, by the way, Paul, because, I did bring up some notes here, and that is what we covered.
Yeah. So, so basically this virus change, this mutation, what happened was that D61G changed the charge of the S1 to allow it to not repel. So what happens is it attaches to the S1 and S2 after cleavage, attach, and then the assembly of the spike protein is allowed. And what happens is that you now have more viral product in the cell and more chance of infection. But if you look at a D614G virus versus if you look at the D614 virus and you look at the G614 virus, you'll notice that the spike protein, if it's fully assembled, is just as virulent with the ACE2. It's not less, it's not more. The key difference is that the G614 version is allowed to assemble more spike proteins because it's not repelling. And because of that, there's more virus in your body. And this goes back to the statement that I was making 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
People, stop, shelter in place, and get out and start living your life. Because what has happened is naturally there was a mutation that allowed for the spike protein to assemble better in your cytoplasm. And Fauci allowed that to happen. It's not that he knew it was going to happen. Specifically that it was going to be the D614G part of the spike protein. No, he didn't know that, but he sure as hell knew that the longer you stay in shelter in place, that there will be gain of function through a mutation. And he allowed it to happen. And this is the problem that I keep on stating. The faster we burn this through our population, the better we are. And the only way to do that is to view it very similar to D-Day. And that is to push through on the beach and make sure you climb that hill. And we have bought time with the hospitals to have the therapeutics, and we know the symptoms, and we understand the virus much better. And what we need is the society to push through and stop hiding in your little cubbyhole and just move forward. Some people are going to die, but that is the price for freedom. Because the other end of this, if you don't do this, you're going to be in shelter in place, and they're going to force a vaccine program on you, and you're going to have a weak immune system. Because what's happening, and you're seeing it right now, every time they give you a little bit of freedom to go outside, go to the bar or go to the restaurant or go to the movie theater, then all of a sudden you have a little microcluster and they shut down the society. How long is that going to last? 5 years? 10 years? As this thing is mutating and gets more further gain of function? It's the wrong path. But then the technocrats will say, well, we have to stay in shelter in place until we have a vaccine. What happens if we never have a vaccine?
Yes.
We never get out? Is that the answer? We never get out? Let's say the vaccine is only 80% effective. All right? What about the 20% that get harmed from it? But let's just say that it's 99.5% or 99% effective. If everyone in the United States had to take it, 1% would mean 3.3 million people would be vaccine harmed. The last we looked, it's about 230,000 people that have died from COVID-19. And most of them are tied to comorbidities. Only a small percentage is of pure COVID-19 death. All right? Now, that's true with a lot of diseases. Comorbidities, that's the nature of the beast. When you get sick, you die from many things, right? If you have many ailments. So comorbidity is an important issue to handle here. But the main point here is that just using logic, not knowing anything about biology, just the logic. Every time we seem to be getting out of shelter in place, there is a slight microcluster and everyone's fearful, and then everyone goes back in. Just look at my anecdotal discussion earlier in this show. We have one case in the building, all right? There's hundreds of people in this building. Maybe thousands. I'm not sure. I never counted. But the thing is, there's a lot of people in the building.
Right.
There's only one or two people that have it. All right? We don't know who. We don't know where. But everyone's walking on eggshells now. The chances of anyone getting it is very, very small. But just the psychology of it has created an environment of unease and untrust. We are creating a world around us where we're not trusting our neighbors. And what's the detriment to the kids? You think it's healthy to have these masks on when they're in school all day? Just from a breathing perspective? No, it's not. But not just that, the sociological, the psychological effects of it. Children need people's faces. That's how they grow. That's how they mature and interact with people. This is a very dark capitulation to a very dark entity.
Now, Paul, a few weeks ago I came across a video that you uploaded on your YouTube channel, and I believe I have a clip of that here. I think it's a woman named Gail Angelis. Is that what her name is?
Angelis.
Or Angelis? That's Gail Angelis. And this was in Arizona, correct?
Yeah.
I have a clip of that.
Which video?
I have a clip of that. Let's play that.
Listen, you cannot get a ticket for not wearing a mask. If someone tries to tell you that you can get a ticket or a violation, it is a lie. There is no regulations, so there is no violation. Repeat, no regulation, no violation.
No regulation, no violation.
What is a regulation? A regulation is a law that is on the books. It has a code. Don't let them fool you into giving you a health code. Is anybody here the health officer? Raise your hand if we have a health officer here. Do we have the governor here? No. Okay? Those laws only, it's their job description. You cannot violate a health officer code because you're not the health officer. You cannot violate the governor's job description because you're not the governor. So when they try to give you a violation for not wearing a mask or closing your business or opening your business, if you're not the governor, you don't need to worry about that. You're not violating the governor's job description. If this doesn't make sense to you, be sure that you go to thehealthyamerican.org. I've got over 100 videos there and on YouTube where I explain all of this in detail. My goal is for you to understand how to defend your liberty. I love you, state troopers. I am in favor of law enforcement. I am in favor of living in a law-abiding society.
Oh my.
The definition of a tyrant is someone who uses power without authority. There is zero authority for any one individual to make a law, period. That is not how our country is formed. Now listen. I don't like about this new normal. Anybody like the new normal? No. I don't even like the old normal. The old normal is what got us here. Do you know what I want, everybody? Better than normal. Yeah! Who's with me? Better than normal.
Better than normal.
Better than normal. I'm going to have that on a t-shirt, on bumper stickers, and listen.
I bet.
We're creating something at the Healthy American called Freedom Communities. You do not need to fight with your employer any longer. You do not need to fight with your school board to get your kids to not wear a mask. You get your kids out of school today, at home. There is something much better, all right? Better than ever. There is a freedom schooling, freedom learning program that I can share with you. I've heard from other parents here that have got their kids at home. Your kids do not belong in a public school. Get them out of school. This is why we got to this place. Do you know that these tyrants want this generation to be the last generation that understands freedom? No. I'm not going to stand for it. Are you going to stand for it? No. I am not going to stand for it, but I need you to stand with me. We need all...
Amazing. And yes, I believe that was somewhere in Arizona. She's quite animated up there. She sort of reminded me of Paula White.
Well, there was a rally that Gail was recording called the Great 48. And basically it's to go against the governor's edicts about how he's managing this crisis. And I'll tell you, she's, I think her name's Peggy, that was talking. But but the thing is that there are many people in the country that are saying things that are very similar to what I'm saying and what you're saying.
Oh, that was Peggy?
And
I'm sorry.
We
apologize.
think the one that was speaking was Peggy. Gail
okay.
was the one that filmed it.
Oh, okay. Well, we apologize to both of them. That was Peggy we heard.
I think it was Peggy.
Okay.
But the bottom line is people are starting to get upset about how it's affecting their children. They're getting upset with the Common Core and how it's destroyed the kids' education. These teachers are getting more money, and the outcomes are worse for many children, especially the inner city, and that is unacceptable. So she's right. Peggy's right. Get the kids out of the school. That's
I understand.
Part of the problem.
Well, yeah, I understand people are frustrated, and I understand people want this to be over, but unfortunately, a virus doesn't go away because of your feelings. That's not the way this works.
That's true. But the thing is that the longer that's true, but the thing
I'm pissed off too.
The longer we stay in shelter in place,
right,
the more chance they will be pushing this forced vaccine program. Now, the question is, what's more important? Is it more important to take risk and knowing that you only have a 98% chance of having a serious outcome from COVID-19?
Right.
And, take that chance and save your civil liberties? Or is it better to stay at home, listen to Fauci, and take your vaccine and have a potentiality of having 3.3 million people vaccine harmed? And anyway, you're going to still lose your civil liberties, because what just happened was that they just passed the BioPatriot Act, because that forced vaccine program is going to be an element of the BioPatriot Act that I've been talking about. So the thing is that if you let the virus take over, then you have already lost your life. It goes back to the very essence of what this country is about. Give me liberty or give me death. That's exactly what this is coming down to. You boil it all down. Forget about protease inhibitors and remdesivir and monoclonal antibodies and D614G mutations and all that bullshit. The bottom line is this: give me liberty or give me death. And I'll tell you, there's unfortunately not enough Americans out there that are willing to take the risks to move forward and get the herd immunity and to prevent the forced vaccine program. Because again, if you get sick, chances are you're not going to go down the path of death if it's treated early. There's ways to mitigate it by supplementation that I've talked about ad nauseum throughout the last 6 or 7 months. And by doing that, you have just checked them. You just prevented them from giving you a vaccine. They are not going to give you a vaccine if you've contracted SARS-CoV-2, because they're afraid of a adverse reaction to the virus, to the vaccine. They're only going to give the vaccine to people that they think haven't contracted the virus. So if more of the population gets infected, then the better off we are of preventing a forced vaccine program. And again, the forced vaccine program is an element of the BioPatriot Act. And the thing is that people have been living with a lot of opportunities from the sacrifice of other generations. And now it's our time to pay the piper. It is now our time to have that sacrifice. It is our moment to actually put our life on the line and pass the torch of freedom to the next generation through our actions. And that action is resonated in the phrase, give me liberty or give me death. That is it. This is the moment. It's very similar to having to fight on a battlefield and you may be shot and killed. All right? But those soldiers that died gave us freedom, allowed us to have opportunities. And you think that that comes for free? That is just only going to be, that their sacrifice, the end of sacrifice is on that battlefield? No. Every generation is going to have to come to terms and go, ask not what the country can do for me, but what I can do for the country. And unfortunately, there's not enough people that are standing up. But Peggy and this Great 48 rally that was taking place in Arizona, there are patriots out there that are saying, you know what, enough is enough. It's bad, but the thing is that we have a path for treatment. We have a path for treatment, and it is a path of treatment where it doesn't go down the road of tyranny and this forced vaccine program and the elements of the Patriot Act.
Understood. And with that said, Paul, Arizona reported just today or a couple hours ago that 1,500 new COVID cases have just been reported. Even with all this going on, you're still saying don't wear a mask. I'm just trying to get this, trying to get the story straight here.
I'm making it very clear.
Okay.
I've changed my thought process.
You changed your thoughts.
Because of the changing dynamics of this virus from day one.
Paul, are you an anti-masker now? Is that what happened?
No, I'm not an anti-masker. What I'm saying is that it's not, Michael, it's not that simple to just put it into a bucket. Because
I have to put you on the hot seat, Paul. You know that.
It takes away the understanding of the history.
Right.
But to boil it down, if someone was just going to take a snapshot of today, where is Paul? My thought is this: masks are more detrimental for children for two reasons: the sociological and the psychological effects of it, I think, are too disruptive. That I don't believe that the masks are helping to the point where we're getting past this crisis. What it does is it slows down the infection, but it doesn't stop the infection. Follow me?
I agree.
The society is still getting infected.
They're still getting infected,
so
right?
Always going to be pushing us into shelter in place. This goes why I say it's time to take the mask off and to get out of your house and start living your life. Go to the bar, go to the restaurants, go to the sports, or the museums or wherever. Go to the stadiums, whatever you normally do. What will happen is that people will get sick, and there's going to be a few weeks of a lot of people getting sick or a lot of people contracting it. But if there is enough therapeutics out there to treat this early, then we're not going to have we're not going to be having mass casualties. What we're going to have is a lot of people sick. But the thing is, what it'll do is now you have built in the herd immunity. You have now biology, our natural processes have figured a way, nature figured a way to fight against this bioweapon. But what they're doing is they're preventing your system to being able to fight the virus naturally and giving opportunity and time for them to push a forced vaccine program and to give the virus opportunity for mutation that gets gain of function.
And Paul, hold that thought.
The faster you prevent that, the better off we are.
Paul, hold that thought one moment here. We'll get right back into this subject because I have more to add. And I even have Dr. Fauci to bring up to you right now. But currently, at the moment, we are joined by another caller. You are live on the air. How's it going?
Good.
What's up, buddy? How can we help you?
Oh, I've been looking into this for some time. And I have not called in before when I tried calling that one time, but then the phone was all messed up. All right. So I started looking into this just a little bit. And so back in June, I called a company that actually makes antibodies. And it's not far from where you live, Michael.
Really?
It's over in, it's a really cool little place. I called over there. I emailed them first just to make sure. And they said they were in total lockdown. So the owner was just there, like, managing the phones.
Oh, my.
Yeah. It's over in Ramona.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's not
I'm
far
familiar.
from you. They're over there towards the ocean.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so he had plenty of time, and so he told me state of the art of what's going on with how the immunologists, the actual people that are making antibodies, are dealing with it. 'Cause
Interesting.
That's a different branch of what they're doing
Mhm.
relative to the people that are doing vaccines.
Right.
Because all they do is they actually make the antibodies themselves.
Mhm.
And so he gave me like a 45-minute, basically walkthrough on the current state of the art. He pointed me at Exxon Bio because he was saying that they do research into like new antibodies, and then companies like Exxon Bio, because they're a much larger company, actually do the production, which is just straight EXONBIO.com. That's those guys.
These are monoclonal. They do a monoclonal antibody therapeutic, very similar
Well,
to.
they actually make the full large antibodies, because there's two different types of antibody drugs that he was talking about. So he was saying that after they get along with that for a while, because the antibodies attach to the spike proteins and disable them.
Mhm.
All right. So what they do is, because you can't take an antibody in a pill because it's too large of a molecule, is they figure out how they can actually make a smaller, like, let's say, molecule that you can actually take as a pill. And then that becomes an antibody pill. Because the little guy gets into your system and acts like the larger guy, and then it disables that specific protein.
Right.
Okay, all right. Now, he
I'm
said that
following
there's
you.
actually pills on the market right now that you can get that have an AB at the end, and that's an antibody. There's a whole class of, I guess, things you can buy.
These are like the conjugate. There's like these conjugated antibodies.
But the
that you
problem
can-
what the problem with that is, though, caller and Paul, it's still too early to know how long immunity will last.
Well, the large antibodies themselves, because obviously your body can't actually, because you get infected with things all the time. Your body can't actually, like, let's say, keep antibodies around, so it has to flush them out. Otherwise, you just fill up. So it's a matter of how much viral load you have,
Exactly.
as to how quickly it'll like unload. I was talking to the guy, and he said,
I think, I mean, the way the monoclonal antibody or even the plasma treatment, convalescent plasma treatment concept is, why it works, is that it's buying time to bring down the viral load so your immune system can at least have a fighting chance to get its own antibodies. See, that's
Exactly.
if you have a virus that is growing fast enough, or it is suppressing your immune system to being able to generate antibodies, which this virus is doing, then the virus will continue to grow throughout the body and cause sepsis and cause other organ failure and everything else.
And you don't
if
want
it's not
that, by
treated.
the way.
So the thing is,
sepsis.
and that's why, right? And that's why cocktail treatment is the way to handle this. These monoclonal antibodies or some other derivative very similar to it, what it's doing is that's one vector to attack this, to attach the spike protein, but it's not a panacea. That's why they had to give the remdesivir, because some of these viruses are still going to get into the cell, and you need to attack a different vector, and that vector is the replicase. They inhibit the replicase. Now, if you attack the replicase and then you take another protease inhibitor and attack the assembly of the spike protein within the cytoplasm, then now you have three ways to prevent the virus from building up in the body. So cocktail treatment is the right way to do this. It's not only remdesivir. It's not only corticosteroids. It's not only monoclonal antibodies. It has to be in a cocktail.
What was that, caller?
Oh, no, you want multiple ways to Sunday. You never do one thing if you actually have something serious going on.
Right.
You always do multiple things at the same time as long as they don't interact badly.
Right. And the thing is that once you stabilize the infection with the corticosteroids and these multiple vector attacks, then hopefully you wind them off of the corticosteroids, and then what will happen is that now you're going to you've bought some time, you've reduced the viral load to a point that perhaps you can get activation of T cells and B cells so that they start secreting antibodies, fighting this naturally. Now, if that does happen, then your antibodies they're going to be longer lasting in your body because they've been self-generated. The self-generated antibodies will last longer. It's not going to be forever. They do titrate out, but the thing is that once you have activated your B cells and they're secreting those antibodies, then you'll have memory B cells. So if you get reinfected, you have a chance of reactivating those memory B cells and secreting your own antibodies. If you're given the monoclonal treatment, all right, and you get past the infection, and let's say you heal, but you, in theory, don't produce any antibodies or very, very low concentration, then chances are a reinfection would probably take place because you don't have enough memory T cells.
Yeah, the T cells are what identify and destroy the. Cells, yeah, it's for those that don't know what T cells are. That's basically what destroys the virus.
Well, your thymus has actually figured out what it is and can see it, and then it produces it like goes out and makes sure the T cells are manufactured and then kills it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's attacking two different ways. You build the B, you have memory, you'll have activation of your T cells, and then it's very complicated.
It is
supposed to know all the mechanisms, but the thing is that it'll create a cytotoxic storm against the infected cell and destroy the cell. It'll kill the cell. That's the T cell, the cytotoxic, cytotoxic.
We've learned
a
lot. We've learned so much these last 7 months. We're using medical terms we've never used before. Most of us out here.
So T cells not only get activated with presentation of an infected cell, then secrete cytokines that induce a apoptotic effect on the cell and kill it. But what it also does is that there are helper cells that activate B cells that start to produce antibodies that will attach to that particular antigen. In this case, let's say the spike protein. It doesn't have to be just the spike protein. It could be other things, other topologies on the virus, whatever is being presented, for the antibody to be created, and then it works. But the bottom line is that there's two mechanisms. There is the antibody mechanism through the B cell, but also the cytotoxic mechanism through the T cell. And if you have memory T cells and B cells in large enough quantities, the chances of reinfection go down. But over time, you're going to have lower and lower. You'll have a circulation of antibodies, all right? But over time, that will go down, and you'll have a minimal amount of memory cells. And over time, that will go down. And that's the reason why, let's say you get a vaccine, and 30 years later, they have to do a titer because you're below the threshold point because you don't have enough antibodies floating around because it's kind of leaked out of your system. So, but the bottom line is that monoclonal antibodies buys your body time to be able to try to fight the infection because it's lowering the viral load, and hopefully, in a best case scenario, your body produces antibodies against the virus, so it lowers the chances of reinfection. And I think this is the reason why, Michael, that certain people, and it's not that many, it's a low percentage, very low percentage, But that's the reason why there are relapses and reinfections.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a moment.
Because of this problem that they're being treated and they're not building up enough of their own antibody.
Definitely. And caller, do you have anything else to add before we cut ties with you?
Absolutely. It's quite funny. It's funny and disturbing because the guy actually told me and sent me the link to Exxon Bio. And this is back in June, like mid-June. And then, like, I don't know, 2 months later, I finally go ahead and look in there, and they finally have a products version, like a products section, which is new. And so they have the SARS-CoV-2 proteins that they actually have these things supposedly around, and then also the SARS-CoV-2 antibodies. And so you go into the antibodies, you select that one. Quite funny. 1 milligram of these antibodies, which they have 2 types, is $1,800.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if you were to get an injection of 1 milligram of antibodies, what that would actually do.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I'm just quite amazed that they can mass produce these things, but they're charging $1,800 per milligram.
I think with the treatment, it's similar to what happened with Donald Trump, and that was it was a 5-day treatment. So that may be the full course of the regimen, and you just divide it over a 5-day period. I doubt that it's just one dose.
One dose, right? It's probably multiple.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a couple doses per day for 5 days or something.
All right.
It's just amazing. I just find it amazing that these guys already had this thing sequenced out. They already had the antibodies. He was saying that, because I talked to him in mid-June, that that community had already developed up multiple antibodies for this 2 months earlier. And had them in place.
Well, it depends on the story that you hear, but what the working theory is back when they were developing it in Fort Detrick. So in 2014, 2015, there were many different startup companies that started popping out from the researchers that were tied into the program. And they had bits and pieces of the protein sequence, the RNA sequence and the protein composition of different aspects to this virus. This is before the further development at Wuhan. So, but that's the scaffolding. It's good enough. And they can tweak it with additional material provided to them. Right? So what happened was there was a bunch of startup companies and patents that were generated out of this weapons program. And so it's not unheard that these startups were given basically proprietary information from the weapons program to develop vaccines for the virus that was created. So they create a virus, they'd be able to spin off, startup companies, make a boatload of money by doing this. And that's one line that they had the development on, right? Then the Wuhan bifurcation takes place in 2015, further development of gain of function in Wuhan, then it's leaked out, but it's using the same base, the same scaffolding, right? It's just, there's further gain of function. So they get that sequence, and then they can tweak their process that's been in the works for 4 or 5 years. And that's part of the reason why they were able to, fast track this, or it seems like, they were able to develop it so quickly. Well, because they've had a jump start for the last 4 or 5 years. Because they had the scaffolding from the Fort Detrick and the Fort Detrick and the University of North Carolina and Duke and some other universities development on this.
Yeah, there were some PDF files going back to like 2015 about the sequence.
Yeah, and not just that. It's the research papers that were published and the patents. And those patents are important because when you have a patent, then you get seed money to be able to start a startup company. So these startup companies that are creating these vaccines and creating these antibodies and all that, it's not because they have some wonder technology and something new came out. They've been working on this thing for years,
right?
In the background, in the background, at some level.
Okay. Can I interrupt just a bit?
Yeah.
They had to have been doing exactly what you're saying. Because then if you go into the Exxon Bio thing and you don't look at the antibodies, you look at the proteins, they have 6 proteins that they have on like just there for sale. Okay. Now you go down the list of these things, and they have the ACE2 protein, and then they also have the S1 spike protein. They have the RBD protein, RBD SD1 and SD2, because that's your cleavage sites you've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then the last one is the 2019 NCOV, which is what they call this thing, nucleocapsid, which they have a different name for that, this is kind of unusual. And the expression host on this is E. coli.
That's even nastier. I had no idea they did that.
The thing is that there's so much homology in this virus that this thing is peppered with HIV. You got tons of glycoprotein 41, which is known to be the main integrating protein for HIV into an infected cell. It allows for the virus to actually not basically move in and morph between the two different cells, two different cell coats. So you have a membrane, a lipid membrane in, let's say, a eukaryotic cell, one of our cells that gets infected. Well, what happens is the virus will dock, and for HIV, that docking is glycoprotein 120. Well, behind glycoprotein 120 is glycoprotein 41. So once it's docked, then what happens is that the lipid profile of the virus, all right, will that envelope will merge with the lipid profile of the eukaryotic cell. Glycoprotein 41 is that kick to be able to get the virus into the eukaryotic cell. All right. So for this virus, SARS-CoV-2, the spike protein, all right, has its own topology of a normal, let's say, coronavirus, but it was able to jump and get high affinity to the ACE2 receptor because it has special cleavage points that are tied to glycoprotein 120 and GAG.
That's right.
And because of that, and they have a lot of homology to the glycoprotein 41, what it does is it has the affinity to the ACE2, and then it has that extra kick to merge that envelope of the virus, the coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2, and that plasma membrane of the eukaryotic cell. And there's other things too. There's more complications. There's other proteins that are next to the ACE2 receptor. It's not just the ACE2. There's other kind of helper proteins that kind of grab and hold on to the virus and help it come in.
Good to go. Anyway, you guys keep going. Excellent show. And also, just to let you know, I talked to this guy on June 18th. I read over all of this stuff and was looking over this whole Exxon Bio and all the other things on June 19th. And on June 19th, that's the last time I wore a mask.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say, I mean, I'm in the middle of the worst area in the country. It's New York City. All right. And I do not wear a mask, even when I have a person in my building that has it. Okay. But the thing is that if I'm on the MTA, which is the mass transit in New York City,
you are.
I have to have it.
Yeah, I see.
I have to have it. They the police are walking around and they'll kick you out. And I mean, you have to have it. But that's the only time I'm wearing it. And I'm not wearing the mask in any other way. But the thing is that a lot of people, because of the microclustering, getting worse, the infections are getting worse in New York. There's a psychological effect, and more people are wearing the masks. But I'm telling you,
hold on
I
one
know
second,
people that
caller.
don't, and they
Yeah.
don't get sick.
Caller, thanks by the way for checking in on us.
Yeah. The only suggestion I have is we figure out some type of fund to move Paul out of New York City.
Well, I mean, actually, me being in New York City may be, a blessing in disguise, because I can explain to people while being on shows like with Michael, and explain what I'm seeing, and saying, hey, something could be learned from what my observation is, and I am noticing that there are psychological damning effects of having this draconian measure with the masks. There's a psychological component here that a lot of people are underestimating, and I think it's going to be very detrimental to children. And honestly, the virus is bad, and people can get sick. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It does exist, and it's important to get treated if you get sick. But I've been stating from day one, part of the therapy is to promote your own immune system. Get healthy and take some simple supplementation, and you're going to be so much farther ahead.
Vitamin D and vitamin C.
Take care, caller. And there he goes. And by the way, early on during the pandemic, Dr. Fauci said this, if you recall.
Mask. Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers.
But yes, that's what he said early on in the game, and now he's saying, and I quote, "Time to put aside these extraordinary excuses and mandate masks."
Well, here's the thing: it's temporal. I think there were two things in the first part of that he was stating. One is what he really believed as a doctor, and the stance that there were not enough PPE for the doctors and nurses at that time. Because when he made that statement, there was a big concern that there was going to be an overflow at the hospitals, and that if that fell, then there would be a major wave through the country. And I know of individuals that served in the military, and they were calling me on my show and telling me they were being prepped for a secondary and tertiary containment zone, that if the hospitals fell. And we started to see the preps for that when they were putting in the hospital tents in Central Park. That was the secondary containment. The tertiary containment was bases at military facilities. And I had people calling in and telling me, and I recorded this stuff, and telling me that there is going to be a secondary and tertiary containment if the hospitalizations fell. And this was the same time that Fauci was stating, don't wear a mask. So I think there was two things going on there. One was that he had to protect the first responders, because you got to remember, if you're always in an environment like doctors and nurses where you're exposed to this virus, there's a higher probability of getting it, right? And if you get it, then you have to be treated, and then you have to go and be quarantined for a while, and then you can come back to work. But it's not, to be a doctor or a nurse, it takes a lot of education, right? So if you had a massive amount of people that are first responders that get sick, you wouldn't have health care, because it's not something that you can get any Joe off the street to be a doctor or a nurse. It takes years of training. It's not like an Amazon packer. I think that was a big part of why he was pushing don't wear the mask, to allow for a ramp up of PPE for the first responders. But Then he changes his tune. But you got to remember, what is his shtick? His shtick is a vaccine program. All right. Well, if you are wearing a mask and you start having other infections, or you're suppressing your immune system, well, it's easy to kind of roll out a forced vaccine program. And the guy has patents for Moderna, for the aspects of the technology, for these glycoproteins that we were talking about earlier. I mean, this guy has been at the NIH since the 1980s.
He's been there a while.
Yeah, and he's like #1 guy for HIV. And it just so happens that his second and third in command happened to be lying to the American public in the early 1990s. This is Birx and Redfield about the HIV vaccine. And they lied, for that development, saying that it had a higher efficacy, and it didn't. So the three most important people that are running the pirate ship over at the White House in this particular pandemic are people that know a lot about HIV and have either lied to the scientific community or have patents that are tied to therapeutic or vaccine development to fight this virus. I find that is a conflict of interest.
And you have no point of contention out of me on that one. And as you are well aware, the race for a viable vaccine has been underway for quite some time now. Multiple people have already died during the early trials. We last heard that senior citizens, as you alluded to earlier, would be, well, when you brought up the vaccine, by the way, and you said it would be free, we understand now that senior citizens would be the first to get vaccinated. And yes, Paul, you said for free, but I'm truly perturbed by that, because that sort of demonstrates to me that they aren't even fully confident in the vaccine. It's now on the seniors who will be the sacrificial lamb, Paul?
Well, the thing is that when I was saying for free, I was talking about the monoclonal antibody and the remdesivir.
Ah, okay.
I wasn't talking about the vaccine.
You weren't talking about the
I don't want anyone, but it's your prerogative if you. But I was stating what Trump was stating, and that was that he stated that the treatment that he had, he was going to make available for free to everybody.
I don't know if that's true, though. How's that going to work?
Well, I'm just saying that what he stated.
Yeah.
I mean, he's made that statement. So, I mean, I'm assuming that he can, hold his promise. But I think that he could do it. But the assumption is that through the stimulus package,
I hope
that there would be billions of dollars, probably hundreds of billions, but hundreds of billions of dollars that go to the big pharma and state, okay, here's your money. Now make it for free for everybody. So it's really us selling bonds in the market, creating more debt that's paying for this treatment that eventually will be paid through our tax dollars. So nothing's for free, but at least people can get treatment, and they're not getting a bill from their doctor. They're going to get a bill from the Treasury Department through higher taxation.
And every year at this time, people are getting the flu shot. You hear family members, friends asking you if you have taken the shot. And my God, I definitely don't take any flu shot, by the way, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I would just recommend everyone to try to escape the needle. So yeah, I don't take flu shots, and I've noticed lots of people that do take the flu shot, they end up actually getting sick lots of times there, Paul. And
well, I had to take a flu shot just to make sure that I, reach compliance for med school.
Some people have to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to. I don't want to, but I have to. And here's the problem. So medical schools are now going to go back to campus.
Sure.
Soon, right? So there was a provision provided where medical schools didn't have to open up their campuses, and they would be remote, right? But if you were in rotation, that's your third and fourth year, then obviously you had to be on site at the hospitals.
Right.
But for your first 2 years, you could do it remote. Now that provision is sunsetting, technically by the end of April. but most schools are kind of forcing everyone to come back in January.
Will you be wearing a mask?
Well, that's the problem. This is a big contention, between the faculty and the administration of the medical schools and
Absolutely.
the student body.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the students are not happy having to go back to campus, and what's happening is you can't congregate. So what's the point of socializing? And the study areas are plexiglassed now, and you have to wear a mask. You're not going to lecture hall, all right? So it's still provided remotely, even if it's a live session, it's still remote. There's no lecture hall. Study areas are open, and the only thing that it is really beneficial to the student is that it provides you in small clusters of people to be able to practice your clinical skills when doing your physical exam, practicing your physical exam skills. So, or taking patient history. So there's really no benefit. And the thing is you have to be wearing a mask, and you got to be wearing the shields and all this stuff. It's not just the mask. When you're in the clinical skills, you got to be wearing the shields.
The face mask. The face shield,
I mean, it's
rather.
just like, to be totally honest, I'll tell you, this is part of the reason why I started becoming, let's say, I'm not an anti-mask guy. I know it sounds from the surface that I am, but if people listen to me from day one, they understand the progression of my thought process, right? But where I'm at right now is I'm so goddamn fed up.
I agree.
With the psychological component of this that I am weighing the whole idea of give me liberty or give me death. I do not want to live this life anymore if it's going to be like this. I would rather stand up and fight the forces that are pushing this agenda. And if by doing so I die from it, it is worth than to sit at home and capitulate and to get sick and to live this goddamn tyranny that's going on. I mean, literally what Fauci is saying to the American public is this: it's going to be bad this year, and it's going to be bad next year. And you know what? You might as well flush down the toilet 2 years of your fucking life.
That's what it sounds
what
like.
he's saying to the American public. You flush down 2 years of your life, and that is 2.7% of your life. 2.7% of your life is flushed down the toilet. You know what? I would rather, open up.
There you go, Paul.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I open up take off the mask, open up the economy, and have the severe infection for 4 months than to have it continue on for 2.5 years.
I'm with you on that one.
Which one's a smarter idea?
Yeah. And of course, the facts are the virus has mutated again plenty of times. I've sincerely lost track of how many times the strain has mutated. I'm not overly optimistic about a tangible vaccine. Studies have been conducted to determine whether or not you can get infected twice with COVID-19, Paul. And it appears that you can contract the virus again.
Right.
After 5 to 7 months, that's what the health experts are saying.
That's true.
But that may not be
the reason. Is it because of mutational rate? Because you got to remember that this replicates. The reason why they made the scaffolding like they did was that they took a really good replicase. That means that it doesn't mutate. That if you're going to make a weapon, you want something that is as pure when it comes out of the lab and stay in the population as best as possible. So you need a very good replicase. So that what they did was they took the best replicase that was in the repertoire, and they took the best spike protein in the natural repertoire. And then they were able to cell select for higher affinities ACE2 by putting in HIV homology.
Right.
All right. So what that basically means to the people playing at home here is that the replicase won't have as many mutations as, let's say, your standard flu virus, because the flu mutates at a very higher rate. So the question is, why is the reinfection happening? Is it happening because of mutation, or is it happening because the body is shedding whatever antibodies it's creating too fast, or the virus is in the body in a dormant phase and preventing the memory cells from activating, being able to fight a reinfection. So there may be a downregulation of the immune system. And that's the chronic phase that I've been kind of worried about with this virus. And there's not enough research about the chronic phase of this.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
But I suspect if I was to put money on it, if we were going to Vegas, and I would say I would put my money on the idea that it is the inability to maintain antibodies, natural antibodies, when exposed to the virus, then a mutation that causes a secondary infection.
Right, and researchers are already warning that some COVID-19 vaccines could increase risk of HIV infection.
Yeah.
So I mean goddamn.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and you got to understand, and I'm wondering why is that mechanism happening? There, when as a layman, you're looking at what are some of the common words that keep on popping up? HIV. So I mean, it's like, well, wait a minute here. There is way too much HIV homology. There's 3 HIV experts that are running the show in the Trump administration, and this is supposed to be a coronavirus, right?
And yet the media is not talking about the HIV homology, which is what baffles me the most. They're not being honest about this, and that's why people are saying, well, it's just a flu, and well,
that's
I mean,
the key.
Good Lord, it's not just a flu.
Right, exactly. The key is the HIV homology. If it wasn't there, this thing would have never jumped species.
Exactly.
The ACE2 affinity would not have happened.
It was a requirement
at any level.
That's right. You needed You needed the SARS and human SARS and the HIV to get it to infect other people there. That's kind of what happened there during this whole sort of little lab experiment, Paul.
Well, if you look at SARS, the SARS,
SARS,
the minor pandemic that we had back in 2003, I think it was 2004. That was with a spike protein that had some degree of affinity to the ACE2.
Yep.
But it had a poor replicase. All right. And so it died out. It died out quick because it mutated and died out. But this, they made so it would die out. It would keep on moving through the population. That's why I'm concerned.
Yes, check this part out, Paul.
I'm concerned about the long-term effects of this thing dormant in our body.
Yes, and here is the scary part, by the way, Paul. I waited till we were almost done with the show to bring this part up, but and I'm glad we're talking about this, the whole HIV thing and the vaccine thing, but here's the thing. We already know there's money to be made from this. We already know there is no cure, just partial protection. They want to keep this in syndication. I'm going to make the wild prediction now that maybe a shot every few months is what they're aiming for, just like a regular flu shot, except this is no ordinary flu. You probably take a regular flu shot as it is, but again, I just suspect that they're just trying to keep this in rotation, just like the flu shot. Paul, they're going to keep doing this. Every few months, we're just going to be required to take another shot.
I think you're right. And not only that, just look at the nomenclature. Originally, it was just called the Wuhan virus.
Right.
All right. But then they switched the nomenclature to COVID-19. Well, that assumes, and you got to remember, COVID-19 is a disease, right, of SARS-CoV-2. So they've already put in our minds that there is the potentiality of COVID-20, 21, and 22. So this is the annuity. The annuity for these pharmaceutical companies to jab you every year.
That's right.
The word on the street is that you have to have 2 shots of whatever the vaccine is, either either the Moderna vaccine or the Oxford vaccine,
the Johnson
or
Johnson
the
vaccine,
right, or the Johnson Johnson's one, or the Eli Lilly. They all are a 2-shot system. So
think about it.
I think
that's right.
So you take it, and then a month or 2 later, you have to take the second one.
5 to 7 months, you might have to take it again. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or it's an annual thing. And think about it. You go to work. You go, well, did you get your vaccine? Did you get your SARS-CoV-2 vax shot? No. Well, you won't be able to get your check this week.
And remember, Paul, I told you early on in the game that it would be mandated in the future to get to maybe work, even to travel. I mean, Paul, at the time I told you everybody was laughing at me, but now no one is.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah. People are capitulating just, currently on the airlines. To fly, you have to be masked for the whole flight. So the next step is going to be, you're going to have this flight ID. Think about what was some of the processes.
Hold on. You were right. You were just right where I wanted you to be. And this is the next news article I wanted to bring to your attention. LAX debuts facial recognition technology for international travelers. So there you go, Paul. It's already happening.
Right. So step back and look at 3 years ago or 4 years ago. What were some of the things in the news about flying and travel? They were talking about a travel ID.
Travel ID, right.
Right. And a chip, that a special chip in your passport.
In Wisconsin,
they were building an infrastructure.
And a Wisconsin company already was installing a rice-sized microchip in its employees back in 2017, Paul. So, all of this is coming full circle, right?
Right. So they build up the infrastructure, and then now they have to build the crisis, right? And there's multiple reasons why the crisis is happening. But what it does is now they use the infrastructure that's been built out, and then now they just say, okay, if you, because we're in COVID-19 and we need to reboot the economy, you have to prove that you have a vaccine. And if you don't have that vaccine, now that little chip that's in your travel ID will say, well, you're not verified to have the vaccine, that you've received the vaccine, and therefore you can't fly. And so you can't purchase tickets, or you can't travel. And so what happens is that's very similar to a social score that is taking place in China.
Absolutely.
And all these tech companies were beta testing this type of technology in China and how it would be rolled out in the United States. And I'm telling you, they have the crisis now. The crisis is here, and they've already built the infrastructure to be able to implement this digital tagging, a digital leash on us.
That's right.
And this is part of the BioPatriot pillar of over surveillance and over control of our lives, our civil liberty. So it goes back to that axiom: give me liberty or give me death. Is it worth it? I understand why people are fearful of getting sick, but the thing is that, you know what? A lot of people in this country have done very well, especially when you compare it to other countries. All right? Anyone that's lived in other countries, I would say the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority don't have the same opportunities as the United States. All right? And people have thought that they can live in the big home and have all these nice toys and everything, and not have to really pay for it. I'm not talking about pay for it in money. I'm talking about pay for it in blood.
Absolutely.
Right? And the thing is it's to the point now where the sacrifices from previous generations are coming back, and and this crisis is demanding patriots to stand up and push through and make a beachhead. And that's why I am taking off the mask and saying, hey, you have to move forward, because if you don't move forward, you're going to lose your capitalism. You're going to lose your constitution. You're going to have tyranny from the government, and you're going to have a nanny state that's going to control your life until a group of people pick up, fight the government, pull it down, and then reboot a new Magna Carta. But it's better to save the current constitution that we have than to lose it, have this tyranny for decades or maybe 100 or 200 years, and then a group of people stand up and rise up. It's better to save and preserve the freedoms that we have now. That's why I am saying, you know what? When you look at the totality, the mosaic, having a mask on and capitulating and doing what Fauci is telling you to do is making the country worse off. You can't look at the problem from a biological only perspective. You got to look at the biology, you got to look at the economics, you got to look at the sovereignty, and you got to look at the geopolitical. And if you follow the route that Fauci is saying, we're going to have a 21st century China, we're going to lose our constitution, we're going to be tagged and have a Biopatriot Act, and we're not going to have, we're going to be living in a new version of Siberia, electronic Siberia. And we got to stand up. We can't allow this to happen. See, a lot of people are just focused on, is it going to make me sick or not? They don't realize that if you capitulate and listen to what Fauci is telling you to do, you're no longer going to be free. And then, are you really living if you're living under that tyranny? And I would have to conclude, no, you're not living. So what's the point? You're better off at least fighting and at least dying for a cause. But that's, maybe there's just not enough people that think like I do. And I'm just, maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. But, I don't think I am. Because it seems like there's an awful lot of evidence historically, and this is how the country was built. It wasn't built by a bunch of, nanny staters. It was built by people that wanted freedom and prosperity and an opportunity to build things.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And Paul, we are coming to a close here, and I don't think you're crazy at all. I think you are just reflecting what a lot of people are probably thinking right now, what they've probably been thinking the last couple of months with the pandemic going on, with the shelter in place going on. And Paul, unfortunately, the way things are looking, it seems like we might just be going right back to where we started.
Well, there's a lot that we've learned.
Of course, we've learned a lot.
But you're right. In terms of the epidemiological curve, it may be actually worse than where we were back in April. If you look at this, it's worse technically if you look at the aggregate level of the country. But once New York gets back online with a second wave, all hell is going to break loose. And that's why what I am saying is so important. And there's been a common theme with me being on your show is that what we say happens a month and a half later.
We become prophets.
2 months later.
We become prophets all the time here.
Right. And it's been happening not just once, but multiple times in multiple aspects to this whole pandemic.
It's pretty wild.
Right. And I'm telling you.
Do you believe in Darwin, by the way?
Paul, I believe in Darwin.
Do you believe in Darwinism?
Well, yeah. The whole idea of evolution. Yeah, I do.
I see it. I feel like it's been on display in the last 7 months.
Well, yeah. It's abuse. Yeah, I'm definitely a Darwinist, but my concern is that people, because it's going to get bad. And even Fauci said it. It's going to get bad, but he's stating, be fearful. Stay indoors. Wait for that vaccine. And I'm saying it's going to get bad, and that is your moment to get out of the boat and storm the beach. Because what's going to happen is that we can speed through the infection and get this thing to attenuate quicker than the never-ending shelter in place. It didn't work, and it destroyed half of our economy. It didn't work, but we did buy time, and we did learn. So now it's time to take the mask off and to push forward. And it has to be demanded that all of the therapeutics have to be available. And the doctors and the nurses, make the decision on that, on what that protocol should be based on that patient's, clinical presentation.
Oy vey. So this is basically our proverbial Operation Overlord.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is our moment where if we don't do this, we're not going to be considered maybe the second generation, the greatest generation. We'll be considered, the least generation.
Right.
Because when our moment was to shine and do something positive for the country, we stood at home and sucked our thumb and listened to Fauci. And I'll tell you what, all the people that are eating the GMOs and been dumbed down, with the TV and other, social mechanisms, it's time to wake up, rub the eyes and just say, hey, do you want to live? Do you want to live free? If you want to live free, do what I am saying. And the country in the long run will be better off. If you don't do what I'm saying, everyone is going to be in a world of fucking hurt. Everyone. And this is our moment in the sun. Our moment in the sun right now is to make this sacrifice. And there's enough learned that we can minimize the damage.
And once again, Paul, I do want to thank you tremendously for being a part of the program. Every time you're on here, I learn something new. These conversations are always enlightening and entertaining. I hope it's that way for everyone else out there. And of course, my listeners just adore and love you so much, Paul. They always want you back on.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I like coming onto your show and talking to you. The thing is that what we have here is a conversation about the most important thing that has been happening to our country since World War II.
Well, this is it. This is the big one. I get complaints all the time. Well, not all the time, but every once in a while now, Paul, somebody will say, "Oh, you're going to talk about COVID-19 again." And I thought, well, this is the mother lode. This is the big one. This is the biggest conspiracy ever.
Right. And the thing is that they are so close in finishing their agenda. That Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is not that far away. That 2021 is not that far away.
It almost feels like this is. It almost feels like this is what George Bush was talking about.
Right. I'll tell I'm a person that believes in this idea of sovereignty and self-determination, and I've never bought into the idea of the New World Order. So yeah, it just, we need to fight it.
Hard to deny now, though, right?
Wait, say that again.
I said it's very hard to deny that there isn't a world order now.
It's screaming in your face. It's in your grill, as Steve Bannon says. It's the deep state isn't hidden anymore. It's in your face. And I'll tell you, we have to fight about it. But unfortunately, I see a lot of people protesting about BLM. I see, a lot of people, protesting about Orange Man bad, but, no one's really protesting about the things that we just stated. What we just stated in the last 2 hours is the core of the future of our country. And I'm not speaking in hyperbole. What you and I have been stating is the foundation of the next 150 years of this country.
I agree.
The question is will the people that are listening spread the word and, say, hey, enough is enough. We are saving that flag and we're going to save our Constitution. And hell with Fauci. Fauci is not on our side. And not only that, he's going against the Hippocratic Oath.
Now, Paul, once again, thank you so much for being a part of the program. And before I cut you loose, anything you'd like to plug before we cut ties here?
Well, I want people to realize that there is many people on the internet, especially on YouTube, that's trying to warn the public of all of the things that are happening. Right? So I'd like to still plug Addy Ads and George Webb. They're publishing their work. on brand new tube, and it's neighborhood news hour, and I forgot the last word that he plugged. He changed the name of it. But Addy Ads, really important to subscribe to, because what that will do is that will give you a conduit into many other different people that are publishing content. So we need to network. So if one of our channels go down, we can help repopulate subscribers to a new channel so that the message can be still heard. And so we become anti-fragile. And so that's a big part. It's not about promoting an individual. It's building an anti-fragile network. So let's say if my channel goes down, and people can go to Addy, and then I'll be on Addy's channel, and then I can say my new channel is such and such, and you can go there. Or if your channel went down, you could do the same thing. You could leverage our network and repopulate your channel very quickly. That's how we become anti-fragile, and that's how we get around this tyranny from the big tech companies. So please subscribe to Addy Ads and his Twitter, his Facebook or his YouTube or his brand new tube account, and start following the people that are on his show. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to Michael's channel. Subscribe to even subscribe to BitChute and Stefan Molyneux or Mike Adams. We all have a different perspective. You may not agree with everything we say, but the bottom line is that we have all been censored because of the things that we've been stating about the deep state and how our constitutional freedoms are being eroded.
And that's
outrageous. The thing is that we have to build an anti-fragile network, and that is very important to survive through this as we coordinate to try to save this Constitution.
Amazing. Once again, thank you so much, Paul. I have taken up plenty of your time this evening, but I am very thankful. And my God, Paul, I can't wait to do this again.
Yeah, anytime, Michael. I love this show. I enjoy our conversations. And, again, you are a friend and a patriot that's been, trying to warn the public on what the hell is going on.
I've been trying my best. Been trying my hardest. So once again,
Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you, brother, and we will talk again, my friend. Stay safe out there in NYC. Definitely wear a mask when you definitely have to, and keep washing those hands and taking those pills, those supplements. Keep boosting your immune system, or optimizing your immune system, rather.
That's right, and everyone can do it. It's very simple. Just you can. It's easy to Google what you need to take to. That are antiviral, and just the simple stuff like the vitamin D's and the vitamin C's, and no matter where you get it, or nanosilvers or the C60s. I don't care if you get it from me or some other vendor. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you build up your immune system so you can storm that beach and survive through this and protect this great nation, because they want you sick. They want you capitulating to a vaccine program that will probably eventually get you sick.
No doubt. Once again, brother, stay safe. We'll catch up soon.
Thank you very much.
Good night, brother.
Anytime. Bye-bye.
And there he goes, boys and girls. That was the one and only Dr. Paul Cottrell. And before I cut loose with all of you here, I do want to remind all of you that our good friend, the Freight Train, he's actually put together a live virtual conference, if I recall correctly here off the top of my head. I believe that is December 5th and 6th. Yeah. 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., I believe, and that would be falseflagconspiracies2020.com. falseflagconspiracies2020.com. That's a live virtual conference. False Flags and Conspiracies 2020. Definitely go out there and put that in your browser, and you'll see our friend Jim Fetzer, the Freight Train, who has put together this event. And there's a number of people that are scheduled to be speakers there, so definitely check that website out. And yes, looking at the clock now, we've been on here a while, and I can't believe I even remembered any of that information off the top of my head. Oy vey. Thank you to all of you out there this evening. Thanks for being a part of the program. Yes, you in the chat room. And remember, you can get a hold of me during the program sometimes via Twitter at Michael Deacon. Most of the time you can find me in the chat room though. And those of you who are listening in on the podcast rendition, I do invite all of you to hang out with us during the live show. That way you can interact with listeners like yourself or me. Either way, new listeners out there, you can take us on the road. iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox, which I prefer. Just search Michael Deacon, and that's where you'll find gold. Or if you want bonus material, patreon.com/Michael Deacon. Plenty of extra bonus content there. And Kimberly is saying, where's the church lady? I think you're referring to Linda Emanuel. I believe she was crying on her last podcast that she did. I believe comments were making her cry. All of you bad people out there on YouTube have been leaving awful comments, so you made her cry. I hope all of you are proud. Now, once again, don't forget, if you do want to support the program, patreon.com/Michael Deacon. Oh yeah, it's nice. Once again, thank you. I want to say thanks to all of you out there, rather. I want to say thank you to K-Nut, Dublin, Lilith, Patty. Who else am I missing? Dave. Did Dave donate, by the way? Is that who it was? Well, regardless, I do want to thank all of you out there who did donate. I appreciate that. Anything does help. And of course, international listeners out there, I didn't forget about you. I see that you support the program too, and that makes me quite happy. Now, before I leave here, I do want to remind all of you that I will be on tomorrow night. As Halloween, we have a show to do, so please show up. I'll be there. The mind continues to race. Stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are on this island Earth. I'm Michael Deacon, and with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.
Under blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to beg you or cancel it though. I know it must be killing time, unwillingly mine. Fate up against your will, through the thick and thin. He will wait until you give yourself to him. In starlight nights I saw you, so cruelly you kissed me. Your lips a magic world, the sky all hung with jewels. The killing moon will come too soon. Fate's up against your will, through the thick and thin.